As we think about that international conflict or the changing world order, it's that, dual polarity of China versus the US. What would you consider the most likely outcome of this dual conflict?
Since I started going to China in 1984, per capita income increased by 28 times. The life expectancy increased by 10 years. Poverty rates went from 88% to less than 1%. In other words, wow, they built the biggest economic change. And with that came changes in power and so on. And I watched that come and develop into the conflict. And what's happened in China and throughout history is when you come into a conflict period, there is autocracy or downright dictatorship, because in periods of war, there is a great risk of internal conflict. So everybody's got to line up, and it's almost dictatorial. Even in the United States in World War II, you have to line up behind the side and fight and do what you're told. And so what we're having, President Xi in China says there's a 100-year storm on the horizon and we have to operate. So that's what's going on there. And so you're seeing a breakup, and you're seeing almost, this ideological difference between, and that also is coming out with two different approaches, that almost a fascist approach and a communist approach on both sides in terms of what are you fighting for. So that's what we're seeing happen. I think that as we look forward, both countries are fearful of war. 22% of American manufactured goods imports come from China. Our economies are very intertwined. If you cross that line, economic war or military war, it's enormously impactful. Here's the history of Taiwan very quickly. In the 1800s, starting around 1840, the foreign powers came to China, and China was very rich. They didn't want to trade. The British come in, and the Chinese say, you don't have anything to sell us, stay out. And then they had the Opium Wars, and they lost militarily. They call it the 100 Years of Humiliation. During that 100 years of humiliation, foreign powers came in. Japan takes Taiwan. At the end of World War II, Japan loses the war. They give Taiwan back to China. However, China has a civil war, so who's in control of Taiwan is not clear. So the losers of the Civil War, the capitalists, who are Chiang Kai-shek, they run to Taiwan, they control Taiwan. So everybody agrees it's one country, and Taiwan part of that country. They just argue who's in control. And then when Henry Kissinger, about 50 years ago, then interacts with China, bringing it into the world community, they reaffirm that there's one China, and Taiwan's part of China, and there should be peaceful reunification over a period of time. And so there's one thing that could cause a war here. Everyone knows this. If the United States says we're in favor of Taiwan independence. So what we are doing is there's a pushing of that limit, and that there will be sales of military equipment to support that position. And so we're very close to a red line. Now, you ask me what I think is going to happen. There are other red lines that we're talking about, irreconcilable differences that there could be fights over. What's happening now is that we're not going to cross those red lines, but both sides preparing for that war. You're not going to cross that line. You're going to press the edges of it, and it'll be risky. It'll be risky, but both sides are not prepared to go to a higher level now. But those risks increase over time, and how they transpire will have a lot to do with how both sides are effective. The most important thing that the United States can do is be strong. But we have an internal conflict and an internal debt problem that is facing that. So each is their own internal problems at the same time as there are external problems. And, is the United States going to win or China's going to win? No, I think the thing to realize is that for the foreseeable future, we don't know who's going to win per se, but that they're going to be formidable powers that are going to be in conflict right at the edge, with the risks increasing with time.